Is Max Crosby actually wearing an Eagles jersey in 2026? Or is Philadelphia about to commit the biggest financial suicide in the history of the NFL? This Max Crosby trade saga just took a turn so sharp it'll give you whiplash. And what's coming out of the league meetings proves that Howie Roseman is playing a game of chess while the rest of the league is playing checkers. Before we dive in, smash that subscribe button if you want the fastest NFL updates on the planet. The city of brotherly love is buzzing right now because the Mad Max roller coaster just pulled back into the station. We all saw the absolute disaster that went down with the Baltimore Ravens. It was a betrayal of a done deal that sent shockwaves through every front office. Baltimore had,
it really dictates the defense.
They had the handshake, and then they got cold feet and blamed it on a knee injury. But now, the vultures are circling again, and the Eagles are sitting there with a war chest of cap space and a desperate need for a game changer. Is Howie Roseman about to pull the trigger on a masterclass move? Or is this a trap that could ruin the Eagles' future? Let's look at the wreckage of what happened in Baltimore. It was supposed to be the blockbuster of the century. The Ravens, who are usually the most conservative, boring team when it comes to trades, actually decided to get aggressive. They offered up a 2026 first-round pick and a 2027 first-round pick. It was a massive haul for the Las Vegas Raiders, who are currently tearing their roster down to the studs. On paper, it was a win-win. Crosby is the definition of toughness. He eats, sleeps, and breathes football. He was the perfect cultural fit for that gritty Baltimore defense. But then the unthinkable happened. Just days after the world celebrated the trade, Baltimore backed out. They cited concerns over Crosby's meniscus repair. Now, let's be real. Everyone knew he had surgery. You don't trade 2 first-round picks without looking at a medical report. The knee injury excuse felt slimy. It felt like Baltimore realized they overpaid and wanted out. They pivoted to Trey Hendrickson because he was cheaper and healthier, leaving Crosby in a state of limbo. Max Crosby is a franchise icon. He has the Raiders logo tattooed on his skin. But even loyalty has a breaking point. Crosby is tired of losing. He is hitting his prime, and he doesn't want to spend it watching the playoffs from his couch. He forced his way out once, and even though he's back in Vegas for now, the smoke hasn't cleared. The Raiders spent $300 million in free agency to try and convince him to stay. But if they start the season 1-4, do you really think he's going to be happy? But wait until you hear how the Eagles are planning to snatch him up while the Raiders are distracted. Before we get into the actual trade numbers that are leaking out of Philly, I have to ask you guys a serious question. Looking at how this Max Crosby situation handled in Baltimore and Vegas, who is the real villain here? Is it the Ravens for backing out of a deal over an injury they already knew about? Or is it the Raiders for failing to build a winning team around a generational talent? Who's to blame for this mess? Drop a name below. Now, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles' current situation. Howie Roseman has been working his magic behind the scenes, and the numbers are staggering. The Eagles went into the offseason with a decent amount of money, but through some contract wizardry, they now have $8 million in cap space. That is top 10 in the entire NFL. You don't just sit on $35 million unless you're planning to go hunting for a superstar. The defensive line in Philly is good, but it isn't elite yet. You have young guns like Nolan Smith and Jay Hunt. You have veteran presence. But you don't have a guy who keeps opposing quarterbacks awake at night. Max Crosby is that guy. Imagine a defensive front where teams have to double-team Crosby, leaving Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis one-on-one in the middle. It would be an absolute massacre. But there's a catch. A massive, expensive catch. The Eagles are already spending $219 million on their offense. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devon Smith. These guys aren't cheap. If you bring in Crosby, you aren't just giving up picks. You are giving up the ability to pay your own young stars in the future. The proposed deal that is making the rounds is insane. The Raiders get the Eagles' 23rd overall pick this year, a third-rounder next year, and Nolan Smith. In exchange, the Eagles get Mad Max. Is that too much to give up for a 29-year-old coming off knee surgery? Or is it the final piece of a Super Bowl puzzle? But wait until you hear what the league insiders are saying about the A.J. Brown rumors. The logic for the Raiders to trade Crosby hasn't changed. They aren't close to winning a ring. By the time the Raiders are actually good, Crosby will be 32 or 33 years old. His value will never be higher than it is right now. For the Eagles, Howie Roseman has a literal addiction to elite defensive linemen. He sees a blue-chip player and he wants him. However, we have to look at the hidden cost. If you trade Nolan Smith, you're giving up on a young, cheap pass rusher who has shown elite flashes against the run. If you pay Crosby, can you still afford to pay Jordan Davis? Can you afford to keep Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean when their rookie deals are up? It's a balancing act that would make a tightrope walker nervous. Some fans are even suggesting throwing Jalen Carter into a trade like this. To that, I say, absolutely not. Jalen Carter is the future of this franchise. He is younger, cheaper, and arguably has a higher ceiling than almost anyone in the league. Trading Carter for Crosby would be a lateral move at best and a disaster at worst. But trading Nolan Smith, that's where things get interesting. If the Eagles have to choose between keeping Jalen Hunt or Nolan Smith, the word around the facility is that they might actually prefer Hunt's upside. The defense is already getting expensive. The offense is already the most expensive in the league. Bringing in Crosby might make the Eagles the best team in the NFL for 2026, but could leave the cupboard bare for 2027 and beyond. Is 1 year of total dominance worth 3 years of salary cap hell? But wait until you see the secret weapon the Eagles just added to their coaching staff that changes everything. While everyone is obsessing over Crosby, there was some massive news flying out of the NFL league meetings last week that no one is talking about. First, let's address the elephant in the room, A.J. Brown. The trade rumors won't die. The word on the street is that if a deal happens, it will be a post-June 1st trade. This allows the Eagles to spread his massive dead money hit over 2 years. Now, do I think they trade A.J.? Probably not. Howie Roseman called last year's offensive performance unacceptable. They were 20th in points per game. You don't get better by trading away a top 5 wide receiver. Instead, they're doubling down. They added Hollywood Brown to the mix to provide that vertical speed threat that was missing last year. Imagine a defense trying to cover A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Hollywood Brown at the same time. It's impossible. And then there's the coaching change. Jeff Stoutland, the legendary offensive line coach, might be heading toward the exit soon. Reports say he might not be around by 2026. That is a devastating blow to the Eagles' culture. But on the flip side, there's a ton of hype around Sean Mannion's new offensive scheme. Jeffrey Lurie himself said that Nick Sirianni was the driving force behind changing the philosophy. They are moving toward a modern, high-speed attack that should maximize Jalen Hurts' legs and arm. The secondary is also looking like a no-fly zone. They missed out on Jalen Phillips because the Carolina Panthers went crazy and offered him $30 million a year, but the Eagles pivoted beautifully. They landed Rick Woolen, and now Philly might actually have the best cornerback trio in the entire world. The front office is also seeing some changes. Jeff Scott is heading to Atlanta to be an assistant GM. People keep rating the Eagles staff because they want to replicate the success Howie Roseman has had. It's the price of being elite. So, where do we stand on the Max Crosby trade? It is the definition of a high-risk, high-reward move. You're getting a player who can single-handedly win you a playoff game. But you're also taking on a massive contract, an aging player, and a knee that Baltimore was terrified of. If the Eagles make this trade, they're telling the world, we are winning the Super Bowl this year, and we don't care about tomorrow. If they pass, they are betting on their young talent like Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter to step up and become the next generation of legends. Personally, I have reservations. The price tag is just too high for a guy who might only have 2 elite years left in the tank. I'd rather keep the picks, keep the young players, and use that $35 million in cap space to shore up the depth across the entire roster. But what do you think? Is Howie Roseman about to pull off another miracle? Or is this the one time he should keep his phone in his pocket? This offseason has been a whirlwind, and with the draft just weeks away, the chaos is only starting. The Philadelphia Eagles are at crossroads. One path leads to immediate glory and a potential parade down Broad Street. The other path leads to long-term stability and building a dynasty through the draft. Every move Howie makes right now is under a microscope. From the A.J. Brown rumors to the Crosby speculation, the stakes have never been higher. Make sure you stay tuned, because this story is developing by the hour. Between the new offensive scheme, the revamped secondary, and the potential for a franchise-altering trade, 2026 is shaping up to be the most insane year in Eagles history. We'll be here every step of the way to break down every rumor, every signing, and every blockbuster trade. Happy Monday, Birds fans. The road to the championship starts right now. Catch you on the next one.